we will get started on dog training Q&A. Ask some questions. If you ask questions, if you have questions, ask them. Or if you want me to talk about something, go ahead and ask. It only helps out other people that may be watching or could be watching. And that's how this thing rolls. So I'll give you the best answer possible, but ultimately it will help. Okay. All right. Let me pull up Facebook Live real quick. What's up, everyone? Jim Majors here with Majors Academy Dog Training out of Green Bay, Wisconsin, and this is Dog Training Q&A on a Wednesday, and it is 6 o'clock. We usually go from 6 up until all questions are answered, or until about 7 o'clock. So that being said, like I just said to my YouTube channel, please ask questions. Your questions will help, despite what you think. So even if you know the answer, go ahead and ask. It will help people who are have no knowledge about dog training and need it. Hi, Jen. How are you? So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Like I said before, it only helps out other people who are going to be watching as well. All right? And I appreciate you guys being here. And yeah, let's get started. Okay, so first question I got from my Instagram was, should I allow my dog to play with the laser pointer? Is that a good idea? And the answer to that is, I'm going to go ahead and say no. Do not allow your dog to chase the laser. For this reason, dogs can easily become very obsessive over light, and then light that goes away. And I'm talking about extremely obsessive. And then it's very, very hard to break them of that. Okay, so when you're in the car, you may see your dog looking at, lights going by on the roof of the car, or things like that. The other reason why you don't want your dog chasing a laser is because your dog can never get the laser. So it's really kind of a, I would say inhumane. All dogs, when they chase something, they have in mind that they want to get it. That's part of why they chase. And so if you're depriving them of the potential that they will get it, it's kind of like a tease, it's not cool. It's not cool. So, unlike a ball, frisbee, or anything else, those objects stick. Those objects they can obtain, even wild animals sometimes. And so you don't want to, like I said, give them something that they think they may get and never ever obtain. And then once again, they can become very, very obsessive to the point where they go nuts over any time they see a light that is retreating from them. So I would go ahead and stop it. All right. Okay, next question. Okay. I have a new foster who is super dog and people friendly, but when he's relaxing or sleeping, he gets spooked by dogs coming up to him and growl. How can I help him? What you want to do is just be there for him in some way or another. I don't have the dog in front of me, so I wouldn't tell you how to go about doing that, but I would just start with just using your voice by, correcting him in the way that you see fit. So if I have a dog and he starts to get up and growl, I will say, hey, or no, or lay down, or just something very simple, and see if that works. Over time, you give that enough time, it will work for you. And but you want to make sure, obviously, that the dog is responding to your verbal correction appropriately. If it's not, then you may have to add something else. Pet convincer, water bottle, doggy don't, some tools that will again help that dog realize that certain behaviors are unacceptable. Okay, that's the best gift you can give that dog, is to be able to have peace of mind, or just have the confidence in you that despite what goes around while he's sleeping, there's no need for that unwanted behavior. All right, so I'd start with a stern voice and see where you get from there. Okay, thanks for your question. And you guys who are watching live, I'm going to be answering questions that are from other social media outlets, but you guys who are watching live, I will answer your questions first. Thank you. Give them some time too. If the dog is new, let the dog have some time to figure things out. But again, always be there. You know what I mean? Always be there, because you have to watch them like they're kids. But always be there, and give the dog a little bit of time to settle in as well. When you're bringing in a new foster dog, you can't have these expectations that the dog's going to get along with you, other people, and other dogs right away. It's not going to happen. Too many people put dogs in that position and then end up giving them back because they're aggressive. Well, you know, okay, there are some dogs that can get right into the groove, but then there are some dogs who need a little bit of time and a little bit of leadership to help them figure things out. And so, that was my second. You are my second person who asked a very similar question about a new foster bringing in with new dogs, and the dog was sort of aggressive towards the other dogs, especially when they walked by. Maybe you're the same person. I'm not sure, but yeah, take your time. Give them time. All right, got a question on YouTube. Trying to walk a dog that was kept on a chain for 3 years. That's all it knows. He just lays down and afraid. Uh, I would say, yeah. I mean, hey, if treats get that dog to get up and start to move, which is what you want, then by all means go ahead and do so. The dog obviously has, little experience walking, and doesn't even know what a walk is, and needs to learn how to follow you. So I would go ahead and maybe throw some treats, and help the dog just realize what you want. Treats will help. Treats are help. Treats are a good pathway to get the dog to realize that it must trust you. All right. But ultimately, the goal is to get the dog to trust you, and not the treats. You don't want no superficial relationship. Not most people, a lot of people train their dogs and only depend on treats, which is not good. It'll only take you so far, because behavior requires a certain level of respect from the owner. And treats do not help with respect and trust. It's superficial. All right? Thanks for your question. Feel free to ask another one too. You guys can ask multiple questions. It's all good. All right, next question. I have a hard time getting my dog to care when he is being disciplined. Totally does not care. And we'll go right back to doing the not acceptable behavior. He's a 9-month golden doodle. He was rehomed to us about 3 months ago. Okay. Why was the dog rehomed? Balanced training versus all positive training. Exactly. I can go in and talk about that for a while, but maybe that'll take up too much time. I would figure out why the dog was rehomed, but I'll go ahead and answer the question since it really doesn't matter that much. They couldn't exercise him enough. Oh. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Exercise is definitely a requirement. It is the priority. It should be number one. But I would go ahead and say, okay, if you are disciplining your dog and the dog is blowing you off, then you have to find a different way of disciplining him or her. You shouldn't, there's no one way to discipline a dog. There are technical ways, but every dog is different. Every dog responds different. There are sensitive dogs and there are very hard dogs. And then there's dogs in between. And so the magic is when you discipline a dog, you give them as much as they can handle. So you want to be as firm as required and as gentle as possible. That's where, right in between there, is where you want to stay, so that the dog takes you seriously, doesn't blow you off. You want to keep the dog on a humble mindset. It will make listening much easier if you can ask more of the young dog as opposed to allowing the young dog to do too much right away. Because again, what happens in most cases that I work with, we let dogs have way too much freedom and then wonder why they don't really listen to us. Or we let them create their happiness. And to be honest, dog training is sort of the thing where you want them to want to do what you want them to do. That makes sense. So you sort of have to teach them how to be happy, within your environment. Obviously, you have to give them what they need before you even expect that, though. Expectations of good behavior never should come until after you give them what they need. And a lot of dogs will require a lot of exercise. Well, not a lot, but just exercise in order to actually even take your word for it or even consider listening to you. Anxiety blocks a lot of so exercise is the release of anxiety. Anxiety blocks a lot of their ability to listen. Anxiety blocks if a dog is too anxious, the dog won't even eat, they won't drink, they won't pee, they won't poop. So our goal, and like I said, the priority is to make sure our dogs are exercised. Then everything should be expected after that. Because some dogs come to me so anxious that again, there's no getting to them. They're like such a slave to their anxiety. They only want what they want because it's anxiety driven. Or I would say anxiety is more of they need what they need and they haven't been getting what they need. And so the bad behaviors are there because of that. So if dogs' needs are met and then dogs act bad, which doesn't happen. But I will guarantee if a dog's needs are met and then the dog decides to act really bad, then I would consider other options, but not until then. So I hope that answers your question. You do have to be as firm as the dog needs you to be. But before you can expect things, give that dog adequate exercise. And those expectations will become a lot easier for the dog to meet. All right? Thank you for your question. Feel free to ask another one. All right, next question. Sorry if I go out of order. I don't know which one came first, but here we go. My brother just adopted a rescue a few days ago. My other brother lives there as well. He loves everybody, but growls and barks and seems scared of my other brother. Barked at him excessively for a half hour today while he got ready for work. He loves everyone else. Nothing has happened. We don't know how to start getting him to trust everything is okay. All right, so when you have a dog that has trust issues, remember like what I was just saying. So make sure the dog is adequately exercised. And then what you'll have to do is start to get the dog to do something that the dog must do when the brother is around. All right. So one of the things that I tell people to do, very simple. Well, it's not very simple. It's actually very tough for a lot of dogs or a lot of people to teach their dogs. But get 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 the dog's bed and put it somewhere where the dog is away from the brother but can see the brother or the action. So typically in the living room, put the bed in the living room. Put the dog on the bed and tell it to stay there. And it must stay there. Even if you have to put the leash on or do what it takes to keep the dog to stay there. Okay? And it may take some consistency. But what the dog needs is leadership within that environment, period. I mean, that's the fastest way, the most reliable way. And the quickest way to get the dog to say, oh, maybe he's not so bad. Maybe this is good. And then the dog will be open to it. But you sort of have to, what you're doing when you're putting a dog away from, or when you're putting a dog in place, is you're sort of saying, this is okay. I'm going to show you it's okay. You stay there and learn that everything is okay through my leadership. So through my leadership, I show you that guests coming in and out, the brother, whoever it is, doesn't matter. What you can't do is let the dog dictate what goes on. The dog is trying to manipulate the situation in its favor because it's fearful or bratty or both. And so you have to coach that dog. No need to be fearful. No need to be bratty. Go lay down. And the dog must listen to you. Like I said, that's the best way, the easiest way, the most reliable way. Through your leadership. Okay? Dog's a child. Doesn't know necessarily. You can't talk to him. Can't get him to understand through conversation. So leadership is the key. Get your dog to go in one spot, and it must do so. Yes, if he starts barking and growling, yes, tell him no. But more importantly, give the dog something to do. Because if you're not doing that and you're telling the dog to stop barking and growling, it's not going to really be effective. Give the dog something it must do to help occupy its mind, as opposed to letting the dog's mind go in a downward spiral of whatever's going on. So teach the dog. We teach the place command here. I will put a link to the video on how to get there or how to do that in the comment section, so that you guys can, if you want, you can teach your dog the place command. It will get it done. Okay? All right. Thanks for your question. Feel free to ask another one. Okay. This question is for Leah. My dog, who has not had any accidents in the house for over a year, has started peeing in the house again when I leave him alone for a couple of hours at a time. I know he's able to hold it. He just doesn't. His diet has not changed, and neither has our daily routine. I brought him to the vet, and he's healthy, and nothing else has changed around my house. Do I retrain for a few months? Has he just forgotten and needs a refresher? I'm not too opposed to that. I wouldn't say it would take a month or a couple of months. May I ask if it's pee or poop? What's he doing? Is it pee or pooping in the house? Because I can give you another suggestion if it's one or the other. Okay. Dog who has not had any accidents yet. Okay.
All right. If he starts barking, okay, this is where I am. Any suggestions for a dog that has over 1 year and is terrified of life and hates me? Product of hoarding. How long have you had this dog, if you don't mind me asking? Only pee. He will still hold his poop. So if he's peeing a lot, more and not pooping, um, let me ask this: how old is the dog? How old is the dog now that you're working with? All right, I got some questions on YouTube here. Hold on. Let's see. Just trying to build something between us. Okay, balance versus training. Trying to Wisconsin. All right, trying to work with terrier that really haven't been out that much. How do you teach him to fight instinct of chasing squirms, gophers, and pay attention to you? How to get a dog's focus during correction, timing of corrections, how long when misbehave do we have the dog to understand? So I'll answer this one first. Okay, so if a dog has some sort of high prey drive, what you can do to start getting the dog to respond to you if it sees squirrels and whatnot is to get the dog to respond to you quicker or better when you are just throwing a ball or throwing some sort of toy. Get the dog to you know there are trainers who will teach their dog, and I've taught it with my dog, to lay down in the middle of them chasing uh, their favorite toy. Um, Again, so better obedience will definitely help with that. If you have to use a tool, well, you will have to use a tool. A long line or an electric collar will definitely get the dog to respond a lot better. Um, so those are the things that I would use to get the dog to have a better recall. The recall is something that's very important. It just means, what I mean, come, you know what I mean? So if I tell my dog to come, it doesn't matter what's around, the dog should come. So that just may mean you have to work on some obedience. All right. I volunteer at an animal shelter. What's your suggestion of the top 3 or 5 things to teach them to be more adoptable? That's a great question. I'm going to go ahead and answer that one. That's a good question. Um, the first thing that I would work on is a walk because it's the most important. It, it exercise is very important for a dog. Everything becomes easier after exercise. So the walk is the most important thing for to make a dog adoptable because you're giving the power to the owner that they can actually get the dog some constructive exercise, and everything sort of becomes easier after that. So the walk is a very good thing. And then how to be calm during thresholds. That's a really good thing too. So the dog should be calm in the crate, no barking, not rush out of the crate when you open the door, or the whatever threshold. So even if you open up the kennel door, dog should wait, sit, and look at you, um, without you asking him to look at you. The dog should look at you, and then the dog should come out. So I would teach that patience. That's another thing that may drive people nuts. And then the place command. All right. So the place command is also something that's very valuable and will keep people from giving their dog back. And a lot of behaviors can melt away from the place command, which just means, again, that when I say go lay down, you must go lay down, despite guests, despite door, despite mailman, um, despite dogs outside barking, whatever, people outside walking. So place command, walking, and patience amongst thresholds. That's my top 3. And I have videos on YouTube about all of those 3 things. And so, if you want to check out a different way of doing that, then check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Only pee. He will still hold his poop. All right. So back to that question. If the dog is peeing, then yeah, I'd maybe go for a week back to crate training. Put him in the crate for about a week, or maybe even 3 days. You know, but yeah, the dog should be able to hold it more than a couple hours, especially the older the dog gets. 2 weeks at a previous foster and 4 days with me. Dog is a husky. Okay, so when you bring in a new dog that's very new to you, the best way to get the dog to like you is to first get the dog to respect you. The first thing that I have to do with dogs who are man-eating, biting, crazy dogs, the first thing that I do is get respect from them. Because respect and like are two different things, but respect is safety. If the dog respects you, you will be safe and you will keep them safe. You have a better chance. If the dog likes you and doesn't respect you, then you are not safe. You may be safe. It'd be a maybe safe situation. But people get bit by their dogs who just like them all the time. So, liking is not the first priority. It should be respect. The dog should not do certain things. You should have boundaries. And then the dog starts to, and as a result of getting that respect, all dogs will like you. So it's about respect first and then like friendship after. Do not pet the dog. If the dog doesn't like you and doesn't want to be pet, for God's sake, don't pet the dog. Don't have to pet the dog all the time. Let the dog breathe a little bit. Let the dog come to you when it's deserved, to really optimize safety and the potential of a good relationship. Those things have to be there. The dog won't leave the place she picks. She's scared of everything. Well, again, your leadership is going to really help that. Your leadership is, everything happens through the more intelligent being, and you are the more intelligent being. So that means you have to show them. Some children are scared of school. Some children are scared of things that they just shouldn't be that scared of. And school maybe is a bad example because some children have good reason to be scared of school. But we have to, as the more intelligent being, show them. Yes, follow through with commands. 100%. Do not worry if the dog will not like you. If the dog's listening to you, the liking it's on its way. So follow through. Get what you want. You're only going to help the dog if you are really hell bent on getting the dog to do what you want. But even if it pees itself, yes, keep a leash on the dog so the dog doesn't pee itself. If it pees itself, that may mean the dog may have can't handle spatial issues, right? So keep the leash on the dog so you can create more space. Okay. He just turned 5 and he's not every time I leave, just here and there. Seems like he's doing it whenever he feels like it. But I know there must be another reason behind it. Maybe. Okay. What are your suggestions? Also, Leah, for the peeing, monitor and maybe try to manipulate water. See if that works. All right. What are your suggestions? Questions for Kayla. What are your suggestions for dogs that reside together and fight? How do you go about rehabilitation when dog owners can't send their dogs to a board and train? Well, It's going to just take a lot of work on the dog owner's part. Dog owners have to have control over both dogs. And then the dogs have to have enough respect for the dog owners not to engage in that kind of crazy behavior. Dogs can actually respect the owners enough to choose something other than fighting. If they are fighting, then they're actually throwing the middle finger to you and saying, I can do what I want. And you don't want to have that attitude. And then that must tell you that you have to keep your dogs on a certain level of respectful relationship, or you have to keep your dog at a certain level of being humble, that the dog won't even think about it. Or no, the dog will think about it, maybe think about it, but then think otherwise instead of just act, instead of that reaction. Some people think that reactionary behavior is out of control, and it's not. It's just a reaction, but it's not them not thinking about doing it. It's something that they think they have to do, and it may be ingrained in them, but they can change it. So reactionary behavior is not cemented in any dog's psyche, especially companion dogs. So learning how to, again, control both dogs and getting them to restart their relationship, because what happens when you have two dogs that are fighting, that, and it may become something that happens over and over again, is that their relationship is damaged, their trust is damaged. And so sometimes if it happens out of nowhere, some people say it happens out of nowhere, it's unpredictable, just fighting. But it's not. That's sort of an add up to what happened initially. You know what I mean? Some dogs think, I'm gonna get you before you get me in that situation. And so you have to really distance yourself from them, be a little bit cold to them to get them to, again, think. Because dogs want what they want. Well, again, always provide them what they need, but then make them work for what they want. If they assume that they get what they want, then it will leave freedom for them to act out to get what they want. But if you can sort of get them to think about what they want, then it becomes that humble dog that you'll need to have in order to correct really bad behavior. But we can talk more about it if you want, more details. But that's the gist of it. Okay, next question. Thanks for your question. Okie dokie. Even if he pees himself, yes. Okay. A 5-year-old female Rottweiler. Have had her for 3 years from a puppy mill. She only growls at men. Okay. Well, if you have a dog that's intimidated of men, like I mentioned before, it's up to you to make her be respectful, at the very least, of men being around. And so if the dog feels that it's necessary to growl, then that dog does not trust you enough to the point where the dog loses the need to try and manipulate the situation in her favor. Dog's growling when men's around. He's nervous around men, which means you have to do a good job of getting that dog to think that just because there is a man around doesn't mean you should become nervous. And so sometimes it's all about showing them that men are okay away from you too. That's why that place command is very valuable. You're sort of throwing them in the fire in a way where our instinct is to pet them and to hug them to make them less nervous. But we're actually just keeping them from getting to the point of learning and understanding that men can actually be something that is very good. Now here's the other thing you want to check. You want to check how entitled your dog is. Does that dog that you're talking about get what it wants? It's a Rottweiler, so they're sort of stubborn. I already know that. Does the dog get what it wants the majority of the time? Because if so, the dog will be less open to new things. And the dog will be more open to new things if we can hold them accountable for certain behaviors. The dog's just smart. Says, I don't want anybody around you. I'm going to growl. I'm a Rottweiler. They'll be intimidated. I'm going to go ahead and growl. Because I'm a big baby and I get what I want. I'm not saying that that's the case. But I'm saying you kind of want to evaluate that. Because for the majority of people who call me, there's always a little bit of that. All right? So, like I mentioned before, quickest, most reliable way to get the dog to see what you want them to see is to separate yourself to a certain degree. That is the case, she said. Is to separate yourself to a certain degree and give the dog a job to do, and then live your life and let the dog accommodate to what goes on in your life, your wants, your needs, to a very high level of, So what I'm saying is, we should be able to do what we want. Our dogs should be able to be happy with the things that we want to do. We want to have people over. We want to have other dogs maybe over. We want to have the neighborhood kids over. All those things we should be able to do, period. And then our dogs should be happy that, our dogs should be able to adapt and accommodate to that lifestyle. We shouldn't, we can't have guests over. Oh, we can't have children over. Oh, no men can come around. Oh, my parents can't come around. Well, you got to go board them if we got to go to the holidays, which I'm not totally against. But we have to start getting our dogs to accommodate to us. But again, I'm gonna always reiterate that we have to give them what they need first before we expect them to give us what we want from them. If that makes sense. All right. Thank you for your question. Feel free to ask another one. Good questions, you guys. I appreciate all the questions. It's going to help out some people who may be new to the channel, to the website, whatever it is. And these are just all common questions that people go through. So it's going to help out. So I appreciate the questions. Keep them coming. Do you think high prey drive is a reason for dog aggressive behavior? Who can the owner work to reduce the prey drive so the aggressive behavior to the other dogs come under control? Thank you. Aggression, prey drive, high prey drive is aggressive behavior. Let's just go ahead and say that. The need to want, the level at which a dog chases and wants to find, wants to search, wants to get at a retreating object, that's aggressive. That's aggressive behavior. We only, as a society, label aggressive. Your dog is aggressive if the dog bites. Well, yes, that's also aggressive, but the definition of aggression is much more broader than that. So there's no dog that has high prey drive that is not aggressive. When we start talking about aggression, we subject it to negative behavior. But the reality is the lab that is a great hunter and is a great retriever is aggressive. And so Now, understanding that, why does a dog bite? Every dog that bites is not aggressive, although biting is maybe aggressive behavior. I don't. We can debate that because some dogs bite just out of pure fear. So, for example, if I'm in an alley and someone comes at me and tries to, steal from me or beat me up, and I fight back, does that make me aggressive? I don't think so. I'm just defending myself. So, high prey drive. If a dog has high prey drive, I label that dog aggressive. Yes, but negative there are negative consequences that are tied to aggressive behavior. And so when it comes to dogs fighting other dogs, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're aggressive. Although some dogs who fight, I would say, are not aggressive. Some dogs are just trying to not be taken advantage of. But there are some dogs who, if they are attacked, will not fight. And then there are dogs who fight, that if put in the right circumstance will not fight. So they won't show aggression. But that doesn't mean that they're aggressive or not. So anyway, that's a lot. But let's just so when you're talking about dogs fighting and their high prey drive, yes, high prey drive can get a dog to fight quicker than the low prey drive dog. High prey drive dogs have what? A lot of energy, and that energy can easily be expressed through fighting, and will come off as aggressive. So, how can you work on that? Make sure that prey drive dog gets a lot of exercise, or the adequate amount of exercise. Because once you've sort of taken away that anxiety, now the dog can be more responsive to your commands and your leadership. Okay, but you'll have to be more specific on what your definition of prey drive is as it pertains to your situation within that aggressive box, so that I can give you better advice. Because when you say prey drive and aggression, to me, those can be attached, but those can also be very separate things. Because there are high prey drive dogs that would never bite anyone. And then there are highly aggressive dogs that have no prey drive. Okay, thanks for your question. All right, laptop just died, so I'll have to check that out here. Questions out here. I have a 3-year-old blind dog from birth that is so sassy to her sister at times. Is that a littermate sister, or is that just a house sister? Why is it not letting me see the whole question? All right, I'm gonna have to pull it up on my computer here. I'm gonna come back to your question. How do you explain to potential adopters that want a pitbull, Malinois type dog is not a first-time dog owner when they want what they want? Yeah, that's a tough one, and I appreciate that someone else is actually pushing that, because first-time dog owners shouldn't even have high. If there's a pit bull that is in any way have high prey drive, that first-time dog owners should not be able to adopt that dog, unless you have very good structure in place and they're willing to do what it takes. Because there are first-time dog owners that have high prey drive pit bulls that are really good, but that doesn't happen that often. So that's a really good question. And Malinois for sure should not be dogs. They should not be pet dogs at all. Some pit bulls don't even qualify for pet dogs. It's just the level of prey drive. You need an experienced dog owner, uh, and that knows how to just what to expect, what to look for, and just is experienced. Yeah, litter mate. Yeah, so doesn't matter if the dog is blind or not. Sometimes litter mates just fight because they're litter mates. It's very common. What are some good activities or games for mental exercise and training? How about getting your dog to stay in place or stay in one spot as opposed to letting the dog be free around the house? That's a really good mental game. Okay, so you should be able to tell your dog to go lay down in one spot after the dog is exercised, of course, and the dog stay there despite you maybe eating, watching TV, opening the door, ringing the doorbell, knocking on the door. All those are really good mental games for the dog. And then you can do simple things like making the dog wait for its food, walking loose leash on a hill, or when you're walking, not in front of you, but beside you with a loose leash, and that's a mental game. I don't really care for all that other, you know, uh, I don't know, but those are all mentally challenging for dogs. That's all I know, and it will get them very tired. So see if you can do those things because those are all good things that will that the dog will need anyway. Let me plug my phone in here. There we go. Okay. Yeah, litter mates fight. It's not impossible to get them to stop fighting, but it's going to be a task, especially if that dog is blind. Uh, litter mates, you know, more times than not, they well, not more times than not, but more times than non-litter mates are going to be fighting, especially if they're two females. All right. How about questions to ask potential adopters to really understand what they want in a dog? Ask them their lifestyle. Ask them the activity level of their lifestyle. If you got a potential adopter who hikes a lot, give them that high prey drive dog. If you got a an owner who's away for 8 hours a day, give them that old senior dog. That's a great fit. Um, Pretty much the exercise level, pretty much the activity level is a very good thing to start when it comes to matching dogs with potential adopters. I mean, that may be a little, well, I mean, some people may take it as personal, but it's a valid question. If I've got a person who likes to take the dog on the road and doesn't have a family necessarily and likes to, go hiking or camping or whatever it may be, then a high prey drive dog would be okay because they're obviously going to fulfill that dog's energy needs. That'd be great. It'd be really good. Let me see. I gotta plug in my computer real quick. All my batteries are dying. Okay, sorry about that. But that's even to take in consideration when people want to buy a dog too. When you buy a dog, you should take into account how much time you actually can have. If you don't have that much time and still want a dog, then you get a low energy companion dog. If you have all the time in the world, or if you have some good time, excuse me, and you're an active person, you go running, you're a runner, then you can have a high energy dog because you can meet that dog's needs. Dog needs to be exercised, man. That's where all the problems start. They're not adequately able to release that anxiety. Exercise, the definition of exercise is the release of anxiety. So that's where it starts. big believer if the dog is tired, then the dog is good. Okay. Thanks for your question, you guys. Feel free to ask another. Keep them coming. I really appreciate that. We'll probably be on here for another 10 minutes or until we run out of questions. All right. We have an American Bulldog Terrier who is one and loves our dogs, but is very aggressive to any dogs outside her pack. Sees them, goes nuts. How do we correct? Super sweet and complete baby and snuggles in home, never aggressive to people. Okay, so you're gonna have to control that dog. You're gonna have to get the dog to really respect what you say. That's the only way where you can get the dog to be open-minded about change outside the home. And if it's on leash, then the dog should learn how to learn how to walk on leash with structure, and that means loose leash heeling, where the dog is heeling beside you with no tension on the leash. So the leash you can jiggle, and you can actually hear it, as opposed to any tension or pulling. Dog should not be pulling. Okay, if you can get that, that's what something I would work on if it's on the walk. So more times than not, maybe it's on the walk, maybe it's in the car, this and that. But American Bulldogs, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, they are prone to dog aggression. Very good with humans. They are prone to dog aggression. I have worked with dogs, American Bulldogs, in the past, and they were highly dog aggressive, very good with people, but highly dog aggressive. I don't want to tell you that to make you lose hope at all. Because that baby that you're talking about also can be smart enough to accept the things you want, but you got to hold them to that regard, and maybe give up some of those baby snuggles that you mentioned to get the dog to actually think about how it gets back to being snuggled and being babied. Okay, because bad behavior also stems from the amount of baby and snuggles. You know what I mean? So if you really want that dog to become full circle, try, because the dog is so young still too, very young. You can change quickly by making the dog work for those snuggles. Okay, and also make sure that dog is exercised, because they can be energetic. All right. Thank you for your question. I do have a YouTube video on the structured walk that I mentioned, which is a good thing for them to learn anyway. Because ultimately you should have your dog to be off leash, and the way to get there is to have that heel that I was speaking of. Because good off leash starts with good on leash behavior. If they're in follower mode while you're walking them, they'll be in follower mode off leash while you're walking them. But if they pull you around when you're walking, then when that leash comes off, or you accidentally drop that leash, dog's still going to do what it wants. So I would get the walk going fine, despite the dog being dog aggressive or not. All right. Thank you for your question. Feel free to ask another one. Okay, I have 2 Rottweilers, as you know. As I know. I don't know. How do you stop one of them from resource guarding at home due to their toys or things they think is theirs? Aggression is present and snarling during the situation if we try and take the toy away. So what you're going to have to do is add a tool. If your word no, or leave it, or drop it, or out is not enough, you're going to have to add a tool. And when it comes to Rottweilers, chances are you're going to have to add a tool. So you can start with being as light as you want. You can have a water bottle, squirt them with the water bottle and say no, or out, or drop it, or leave it. Or you can start with what they call a pet convincer and do the same thing. No, out, stop, drop, leave it. Or then you can use the e-collar if that doesn't work. Either way, the dog should, when you say out, drop it, leave it, move, go, then the dog should actually do that. And you will have to add a tool for stubborn dogs, such as Rottweilers. Um, and so you want to have the ability to gain that respect to where you can grab anything from your dogs. Rottweilers are very prone to be resource aggressive, so don't beat yourself up about it. But every dog can respect you to that level. That when you say out, because it's only going to help them in the long run if they have something that really could be damaging. You know, some dogs, go into garbage cans and they'll eat chicken bones. Or I had this one lady whose dog grabbed a raccoon carcass and was going to eat it, and the lady could not take the carcass away because the dog would bite her. And so in those situations, you wanna be able to say out, drop it, leave it, whatever you want to say, and the dog actually do so. It's just going to, keep your dog a little bit healthy. So, thanks for your question. Hope that helps. All right, we fostered dogs a few times. The last time, the dog really got along with my dog to the point where we even wanted to keep him. Went on vacation. Our dog went to my sister's. The foster dog went to someone else's house. Halfway through our vacation, the dogs were both coming back to our house with a friend staying there. When the dogs were reintroduced, the foster dog went after my dog in an aggressive way, which my dog doesn't respond well to. We've tried reintroducing them again. Once we got back from vacation, same thing. The foster dog did have severe hip dysplasia at the time. He has since had a replacement, both German Shepherds. Do you think the pain from the hip could have changed the foster dog's temperament? No. Maybe the irritability, but maybe that friend, I'm thinking, may have did something wrong, and I'd be able to figure it out if I talked to you, but now their relationship is a little damaged, and what you have to do is really find out who the more assertive one is, or who the more aggressive one is, or who starts it, or who the more bratty is. Let's just figure out those things, and then sometimes you have to be twice as hard on that dog to reset the potential of them seeing things as it once was. And so, like I said earlier, when dogs fight and they fight again, then that tells you the relationship is damaged. And then that also tells you from a leadership standpoint that you have to gain more control over both dogs, so that they can reestablish trust within them, within the relationship. But if you've got one or both dogs who are sort of fighting for affection, space, food, toys, then that means the owners have to step in and take those things away for a while. All right, that's the best way, the quickest way, the most reliable way to get dogs to see eye to eye once again. It's all about our control, and there's little that dictates otherwise, especially if the dog is not mentally ill. So get control over them. Again, the dog, in that situation who's more aggressive, who's more adamant about the fight, is the one who you want to be harder on. What do you notice in a human that you would not give them a dog? if they're too needy about getting the dog, if they're too impatient about getting the dog, that's a red flag for me, because they haven't really thought things through. Some people will really be patient about it, and they know that it is sort of an investment, an adventure, and something that takes time. So they won't mind waiting for the right fit, as opposed to being obsessive about getting one particular dog. That's what I'd look for. All right. My chocolate lab takes me for walks. He's almost 4. How do I begin teaching him to walk nicely at his age? It's almost dangerous at this point to walk him, and I don't know where to start. All right. That's a great question. I'm going to reply to your comment with a link to my YouTube video. Okay. I got to get going now, but I'm going to reply with that video on how to get that structured walk. All right. Get that dog walking. That'll be very good for you guys. Walking's not only good for them, but it's good for us. Studies have shown that we add like days to our life if we decide the more we walk. Okay, so get out with your dog and walk, because it's not only healthy for you, for the dog, but it's also healthy for the person walking the dog. But make sure it's not something that is dangerous. Make sure it's something that can be peaceful for the both of you. All right, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. I really appreciate you guys watching. Please give me a thumbs up or a like, whatever you want to do, and we'll keep these going. I'm gonna be back next week, Wednesday, for episode 103. And don't be afraid to look through past videos as well. There's, like I said, there's 103 of these. So there's always common questions that are being answered, and they may help you out. Until next time, we'll see you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.